The vast Pacific Ocean stretches endlessly, a canvas of deep blues and gentle waves, rippling under a sky painted with the soft hues of dawn. Here, in the early months of 1942, the sea seems infinite, almost timeless, as if the world itself pauses to breathe. Small islands dot the horizon, barely noticeable against the immensity of the ocean, and among them lies Midway, a tiny outpost in the middle of this watery expanse. Its presence is quiet, almost humble, but soon it will become the center of a story that will change the course of a war. The winds ripple over the surface, moving in patterns only the sea itself can understand. The gulls cry faintly, circling above the atoll, and the coral reefs below reflect fragments of light like scattered pieces of glass. There is no hint here in this tranquil morning that the world is at war. Yet far beyond the horizon, great fleets are stirring, and men, far from this quiet paradise, are plotting moves that will ripple across the waves like invisible currents. In the months before this moment, the world has been shaken. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor stunned the United States. Overnight, sleepy naval bases and sunlit harbors became the battleground for a sudden, harsh reality. Entire fleets were scarred, ships sunk or crippled, and lives lost in ways that seemed unimaginable. Yet even as the smoke from Pearl Harbor drifted into the sky, far across the Pacific, tiny Midway Island remained untouched, almost forgotten, a quiet guardian of an ocean no one fully controls. It is important, as we begin, to picture this place. Midway is not just a dot on the map. It is a world unto itself. Its shores are lined with soft sands that glisten in the early sun. Palms sway lazily in the breeze, casting elongated shadows on the ground. At high tide, waves lap gently against the reefs, and the distant sound of water breaking over the coral is almost hypnotic and a lullaby whispered by the sea. Life here moves slowly at its own pace. The soldiers stationed on the island are few but alert. They maintain watchtowers, drill when needed, and otherwise move quietly through their routines, unaware that soon their small island will become the focal point of a battle that will echo across history. But far away, in the vastness of the Pacific, larger forces are at play. Japan's ambitions stretch across islands and oceans, seeking dominion over territories that are strategically valuable and rich in resources. For Japan, Midway is not merely a tiny speck in the ocean, it is a stepping stone, a place that could extend their reach and threaten the western coastlines of the Pacific. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Japan's naval strategy, envisions a bold plan, one that relies on precision, timing, and the element of surprise. He understands that the United States, though recently wounded, is still a formidable opponent. Every move must be calculated, every risk weighed carefully against potential gain. On the other side, the United States is gathering strength from its losses. Commanders like Admiral Chester W. Nimitz study reports and intelligence with meticulous care. They know that the enemy is powerful, that the skies will soon be filled with aircraft, and that the seas will be carved into lanes of fire and smoke. And yet there is hope, fragile as it may be, born from the bravery of men willing to face overwhelming odds. And amid this tension, intelligence reports begin to trickle in, pieces of a puzzle that, if interpreted correctly, could turn the tide in favor of the United States. The calm before the battle is almost deceptive. From Midway's quiet beaches, one could watch the sun rise over the horizon and think the world was untouched by conflict. Fishermen in small boats cast their nets, unaware of the fleets converging hundreds of miles away. Birds swoop and dive, playing above the coral waters. The wind carries the scent of salt and sun, mingling with the faint aroma of tropical flowers that grow scattered across the atoll. All seems peaceful, but the ocean is a stage for forces far beyond the eye's reach, and the currents are about to bring a storm of unprecedented scale. As we drift deeper into this story, imagine standing at the edge of the atoll. Feel the warm sand under your feet, the cool water lapping at your ankles. Hear the distant cry of seabirds and the rustle of palm fronds. This is Midway as it was, a serene oasis in the vast ocean, blissfully unaware of the events that will soon unfold. And yet the quiet carries a certain weight, a tension that is almost imperceptible. Every wave, every gust of wind seems to hold its breath, as if nature itself knows that change is coming. Across the ocean, Japanese carriers glide silently over the water. Their decks are alive with activity, sailors preparing for an operation that has been months in the making. Planes are loaded with bombs and torpedoes. Pilots check their instruments and straps, faces set with determination and focus. There is a rhythm to their work, a silent efficiency that mirrors the calm of the waves below. And while these men prepare for action, thousands of miles away, U.S. naval commanders are doing the same. In offices lit by the soft glow of lamps, analysts study coded messages, piecing together the enemy's intentions like a delicate puzzle. Every decision carries immense weight. Every calculation could mean life or death. In moments like these, time seems to stretch. The ocean and sky merge in shades of blue, and the horizon appears infinite. The sun climbs slowly, casting gold and pink streaks across the water, while the world seems to hold its breath. This is the calm before the storm, a lull that precedes the roar of engines, the thunder of cannons, and the fury of a battle that will be remembered for generations. And yet, even amid the strategy, the planning, and the tension, there is room for reflection. We can imagine the men aboard both fleets thinking of home, letters they have written, faces they long to see, families waiting. In the midst of war, these human moments persist, quiet and almost sacred. The ocean may be a battlefield, but it is also a space where life, memory, and hope continue to exist, intertwined with the currents and winds. So as you listen or read, allow your mind to drift along these waves. Picture the sun rising over Midway, the gentle lapping of water, the distant flutter of wings. Feel the anticipation in the air, the unseen tension that hangs like a veil over the ocean. And know that soon, we will step into the unfolding story of the Battle of Midway, a tale of courage, intelligence, risk, and the delicate balance of fate. But for now, let yourself sink into this calm, the peace before conflict. Let the words carry you gently like the motion of a boat on a tranquil sea. Let the story settle in your mind, soft and steady, a gentle guide through history's currents. And as the waves of Midway rise and fall in your imagination, allow your own thoughts to drift, preparing for the adventure and lessons that lie ahead. The Pacific Ocean is vast, almost impossibly so, a seemingly endless expanse of deep blue stretching beyond the horizon. From the sky above, it looks like a liquid mirror, reflecting clouds that drift lazily, almost indifferent to the passage of time. Waves ripple gently, creating patterns that repeat themselves over and over in an eternal rhythm. There is a stillness here, a sense of peace, as if the world itself has paused to breathe. And amid this vastness lies a tiny atoll, almost imperceptible on the map, yet destined to become a focal point of history, Midway. Midway is modest, a handful of islands surrounded by coral reefs that shimmer beneath the sun. Soft sands line the beaches, glowing golden in the early morning light. Palms sway lazily in the warm breeze, casting long shadows that shift as the day progresses. The waters around the island are calm, teeming with life below the surface, fish darting through coral gardens as if performing a choreographed dance. At high tide, waves lap gently against the reefs, whispering secrets only the ocean knows. From a distance, one could mistake Midway for a paradise untouched by the world, a quiet oasis in the heart of an immense, restless sea. The soldiers stationed there walk along the sands, carrying out their routines in deliberate, measured steps. Watchtowers rise like sentinels over the island, each man scanning the horizon with eyes alert for any sign of movement. Life here is simple yet purposeful, Meals are prepared, drills are conducted, equipment is maintained, and the rhythms of daily life continue under the sun's steady gaze. Though there is an air of routine, there is also a subtle tension, a sense that this calm, tranquil place is temporary, that something larger is brewing beyond the horizon just out of sight. Far across the Pacific, in harbors and ports stretching from Japan to Hawaii, larger forces are stirring. The year is 1942, and the world has been shaken by events that no one could have fully predicted. Less than 6 months ago, the attack on Pearl Harbor had sent shockwaves through the United States. Battleships were scarred, aircraft destroyed, and lives lost in an instant, forever altering the course of the Pacific conflict. Entire cities of ships, docked in orderly lines and gleaming under the morning sun, had been transformed into smoldering wrecks in a matter of hours. The suddenness of the attack left the U.S. Navy reeling, yet not defeated. Amidst the loss, there was determination, a quiet resolve to regroup, to plan, and to strike back. While the United States tended to its wounds and prepared to respond, Japan's ambitions stretched further into the Pacific. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, a brilliant strategist with a keen understanding of naval warfare, envisioned a plan that would expand Japan's reach and secure its dominance in the region. The idea was audacious: to lure the U.S. Pacific Fleet into a trap, to strike decisively, and to cripple the enemy in a single, overwhelming blow. Midway, small and seemingly insignificant, was the key. Its location made it a gateway, a stepping stone toward the Hawaiian Islands and the Western Pacific. Securing it would provide Japan with strategic advantage and control over vital sea lanes. To the soldiers and sailors stationed on Midway, however, none of this was immediately apparent. Their lives were measured in small routines: the rising sun, the rhythmic crash of the waves, the calls of birds overhead. Fishermen in small boats cast nets in the shallow waters, unaware of the great fleets converging hundreds of miles away. Seabirds swooped and dived, their cries echoing across the water, the scent of salt mixed with tropical flora, carried by a gentle breeze that rustled the palms. It was a world that seemed suspended in time, a fragile bubble of tranquility in the midst of a war that was rapidly expanding across the Pacific. Even so, Midway's isolation made it crucial. Its airstrips, though small, allowed for reconnaissance missions and fighter patrols that could monitor the movements of any approaching fleet. Coastal defenses, though modest, were strategically positioned to provide maximum coverage. Every observation tower, every lookout post was manned by individuals who understood the importance of vigilance, even in a place that seemed untouched by the wider conflict. The soldiers were aware that this calm, this quiet, was fleeting, and they remained alert, ready for the moment when the ocean would no longer be peaceful. As dawn gives way to mid-morning, the light shifts over the water, transforming shades of blue into deeper, richer hues. The sun glints off the surface, sending scattered reflections that dance like tiny stars upon the waves. The coral reefs beneath shimmer, revealing vibrant colors that are almost hidden beneath the water's surface. Schools of fish move in synchrony, their scales catching the light, creating a tapestry of motion beneath the tranquil exterior of the ocean. It is a world of beauty, one that seems almost eternal, and yet, like all things, it is on the cusp of change. Across the ocean, Japanese carriers glide silently over the waves. Their decks are alive with activity, sailors moving with precision and discipline. Aircraft are loaded with bombs and torpedoes. Pilots run through checks and final inspections, their expressions set with focus and determination. Every motion, every command is part of a larger choreography, a dance of preparation that mirrors the calm below. While the men prepare for battle, strategists plot each move, calculating distances, fuel consumption, and the precise timing required for success. It is a delicate balance, a combination of human skill, machine precision, and the unpredictable nature of the ocean itself. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, in offices illuminated by the soft glow of lamps, U.S. naval commanders are engaged in their own preparations. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, commanding the U.S. Pacific Fleet, studies reports and intelligence with meticulous attention. Messages intercepted from Japanese communications provide fragments of a larger picture, pieces of a puzzle that, if interpreted correctly, could turn the tide of the conflict. Analysts work quietly, translating codes, plotting movements on maps, and advising on strategy. Every decision carries weight. Every calculated risk could mean victory or disaster. The tension is almost imperceptible yet omnipresent. From Midway's quiet beaches, one could watch the sun climb slowly over the horizon and imagine the world as serene and untouched. Yet the ocean holds secrets. Currents moving invisibly beneath the surface, carrying with them the potential for sudden and dramatic change. The gentle rise and fall of the waves masks the brewing storm, and the horizon conceals the approach of vast fleets whose presence will transform this peaceful atoll into a battleground. It is in this tension between peace and impending conflict that the story of Midway truly begins. Imagine standing on the edge of the island, feeling the warm sand beneath your feet, listening to the rhythmic sound of waves, and inhaling the scent of salt and tropical flowers. The air is still, carrying the faint calls of seabirds and the rustle of palm fronds. The ocean stretches infinitely in all directions, a deep and tranquil expanse, hiding the movement of forces far beyond sight, and yet beneath this calm the currents of history are shifting, bringing with them the inevitability of change. Life on the island is simple but purposeful. Soldiers carry out daily duties, maintaining equipment, patrolling beaches, and standing watch from elevated towers. They are conscious of the significance of their presence, even if the larger events remain distant. In quiet moments, they pause to look out over the water, imagining the vastness of the Pacific and the mysteries it holds. The wind carries stories from afar, messages of war, of strategy, of nations in motion, and the island becomes a silent witness to events unfolding far beyond its shores. And yet, despite the weight of history approaching, there is beauty here. The sun arcs slowly across the sky, casting long golden streaks across the water. Clouds drift lazily, reflected perfectly in the calm sea. Fish move beneath the surface, shimmering with iridescent colors, and coral reefs create intricate, vibrant landscapes. Every detail contributes to the illusion of timelessness, of a world suspended in quiet, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. The calm is almost deceptive. Across the Pacific, Japanese carriers move steadily toward their objective, a hidden force whose arrival will mark the beginning of a dramatic and pivotal confrontation. The U.S. fleet, guided by intelligence and strategic foresight, prepares to meet this challenge, unaware of the precise timing of the enemy's approach, but confident in the skill and resolve of its men. Both sides act with determination, planning, and an awareness of the stakes. Yet neither can fully control the uncertainty that lies ahead. It is within this delicate balance between peace and conflict, between calm and storm, that the story of the Battle of Midway takes shape. The ocean, so vast and seemingly eternal, becomes a stage for human courage, strategic brilliance, and the unpredictable chaos of war. And as we immerse ourselves in this narrative, we begin to see that the battle is not just about ships and planes, not just about victory or defeat, but about the choices, actions, and resilience of individuals who stand at the crossroads of history. In the quiet of the morning, on the sunlit shores of Midway, we can almost feel the anticipation in the air. The island itself seems to hold its breath, aware in some unspoken way of the significance of what is to come. Waves lap gently against the shore, birds call softly, and the wind carries a gentle hum over the sands. All is calm, yet beneath the surface, both literally and metaphorically, forces are in motion. The currents of the ocean and the currents of history are aligning, ready to collide in a moment that will change the course of the Pacific War. And so, as we begin this journey, let yourself drift along with the narrative. Picture the sun rising over Midway, the calm waters, and the gentle sway of palms. Imagine the soldiers on watch, the distant fleets moving silently over the horizon, and the delicate tension that stretches across the Pacific. This is the calm before the storm, a moment of serenity that holds within it the promise of drama, courage, and history. Let the words carry you gently across the waves, letting the story unfold slowly like a tide rising and falling. Feel the tranquility of the ocean, the warmth of the sun, the rhythm of the wind, and the quiet anticipation of history about to be made. In this space between calm and conflict, between serenity and action, the stage is set for the remarkable events that will follow. The Battle of Midway, a turning point in the Pacific, and a story that echoes across time. As the sun continues its slow climb over the endless Pacific, the ocean seems tranquil, almost timeless, yet beneath this serene surface, currents of tension swirl and gather strength. Midway Island, a modest atoll of sand and palms, lies in quiet isolation, unaware of the forces converging upon it. And while the waves lap softly against the reefs, far across the Pacific, history is in motion, and nations are preparing for events that will ripple across the world. In December of 1941, the United States had awakened to a shocking reality. The attack on Pearl Harbor was swift, brutal, and devastating. Entire fleets of battleships were scarred or sunk, aircraft destroyed in the blink of an eye, and hundreds of lives lost in a single horrifying morning. The world had shifted overnight. What had seemed a distant conflict now touched the very shores of the Pacific, and the United States was forced to confront the staggering reality of war. The ripple effects of Pearl Harbor spread far and wide. Japanese forces, emboldened by their success, looked to extend their reach further into the Pacific, securing territories rich in resources and strategic value. Islands across the ocean became chess pieces in a game of power and influence, each one a potential base, each one a stepping stone to dominance. Among these islands, Midway was small and seemingly insignificant, yet its location made it a keystone in the strategic plan that was beginning to take shape. To understand the rising tension, one must imagine the scale of the Pacific. It is immense, a vast expanse that seems endless, dotted with islands like scattered jewels upon a blue canvas. Japanese carriers and fleets moved like shadows across the water, their presence felt only in the subtle signs of preparation and movement. At the same time, the United States, recovering from its initial losses, began to rebuild its strength, sending ships and aircraft to key positions, training pilots and gathering intelligence. Every move was deliberate, every choice laden with consequence. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Japan's naval strategy, was a man of vision and meticulous planning. He understood that the Pacific was a theater of both opportunity and danger. The U.S. Pacific Fleet, though wounded at Pearl Harbor, remained formidable. Yamamoto conceived a bold plan to lure the Americans into a trap, deliver a decisive blow, and secure Japanese dominance in the Central Pacific. Midway, tiny and remote, was to be the focal point of this operation, a place that would determine control of the ocean and shape the course of the war. From the perspective of the United States, the situation was both urgent and delicate. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, newly appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, faced immense pressure. The Pacific was vast, resources were stretched thin, and intelligence was incomplete. Yet Nimitz possessed a calm, analytical mind, capable of making precise, informed decisions under pressure. He understood that the stakes were immense and that the coming months would require both strategy and courage. Amid these global maneuvers, Midway itself remained peaceful, a small outpost quietly fulfilling its purpose. Soldiers patrolled its sandy beaches, maintaining observation posts and airstrips. They watched the horizon, scanning the waves for any sign of approaching ships. Aircraft rested on the runway, engines silent, wings glinting in the sunlight. Life continued with careful routines, yet there was an unspoken awareness among the men that the calm was temporary, that a storm lay far beyond sight, approaching with inexorable inevitability. The tension in the Pacific was not only military but also political. Leaders in Washington, D.C. and Tokyo engaged in complex calculations, assessing risks, predicting responses, and weighing the consequences of every action. War was not only fought on the waves, but also on maps, in offices, and in conversations filled with strategy, foresight, and uncertainty. Decisions made behind closed doors would soon manifest in waves, engines, and cannon fire, shaping the fates of thousands of men and the course of nations. Japan's ambitions were far-reaching. Beyond Midway, its expansionist strategy aimed to secure territories rich in oil, minerals, and other resources essential for sustaining the war effort. The capture of key islands would provide strategic bases, enabling the Japanese Navy to operate with increased range and flexibility. Every island occupied or fortified was a step toward dominance, a move in a vast, high-stakes game played across the Pacific. Yet these ambitions carried risks. Each advance stretched supply lines, exposed fleets to counterattacks, and required careful timing and coordination. For the United States, the challenge was immense. The Pacific Ocean is vast, and tracking enemy movements across thousands of miles required skill, intelligence, and luck. Ships had to be positioned strategically, aircraft carriers protected, and pilots trained for missions that could mean life or death. Information was precious. Intercepted communications, reconnaissance flights, and coded messages became vital tools in understanding the enemy's plans. Each fragment of intelligence was like a piece of a puzzle, slowly revealing the larger picture and guiding decisions that could determine the outcome of the conflict. Amid this backdrop, Midway became more than a remote island. It became a symbol of the delicate balance of power in the Pacific. Its airstrips, though modest, allowed for reconnaissance and rapid response. Its observation posts provided early warnings. Every man stationed there, though small in number, contributed to a defensive network that could influence events far beyond the atoll. In quiet moments, as waves lapped against the shore and the sun warmed the sands, the soldiers carried out their duties with an understanding of the island's importance, aware that the calm was temporary, yet determined to be ready when the moment arrived. As Japan's fleets moved steadily toward their objective, the tension in the Pacific grew almost imperceptibly. The vast ocean, which seemed so serene and eternal, became a theater for strategic planning, human courage, and the unpredictability of war. The calm waves masked a coming storm, one that would test the skill, determination, and bravery of thousands of men. And while the soldiers on Midway maintained watch over their small corner of the world, the currents of history were shifting, bringing the collision of forces that would soon erupt into battle. The psychological aspect of this tension cannot be overstated. Both sides understood the stakes. Japanese commanders sought to achieve decisive victories, to cripple the enemy before they could fully recover. American leaders sought to protect vital positions, to anticipate enemy moves, and to strike back when the opportunity arose. Each fleet, each ship, and each plane represented not just military power, but the hopes, fears, and resolve of nations. And in the midst of these calculations, the human element persisted. The courage of pilots, the focus of sailors, and the endurance of men facing unimaginable uncertainty. On Midway, life continued in its quiet, deliberate rhythm. Soldiers maintained equipment, conducted drills, and patrolled the perimeter. Observers scanned the horizon with binoculars, noting every shift in light, every distant shadow, and every movement on the water. Aircraft sat ready on the runway, engines silent, pilots prepared for action at a moment's notice. And yet, amid the routines, there was a sense of anticipation, a quiet awareness that the calm would soon be broken by forces far beyond the island itself. It is important to imagine this tension not as chaos, but as a deliberate, almost imperceptible pressure building across the Pacific. The ocean, so vast and serene, becomes a stage for the unfolding drama. Fleets maneuver silently, pilots practice maneuvers in anticipation, and strategists refine plans with painstaking care. Each day brings subtle changes, the shift of tides, the movement of ships, the interception of messages, building a picture that, while invisible to most, shapes the course of history. At the heart of this tension is Midway, a small island that exemplifies the delicate balance of power in the Pacific. Its location made it both vulnerable and valuable, a place where the outcomes of larger conflicts could be influenced by a relatively small force. The island's watchtowers, airstrips, and coastal defenses were modest, yet they represented a critical node in the network of strategy stretching across thousands of miles. Soldiers stationed there understood that their actions, no matter how small, could reverberate across the ocean, influencing the movements of fleets and the fate of nations. As we imagine the Pacific during this period, it is easy to be captivated by the serenity of the environment. The gentle waves, the soft light of dawn, the rustling of palm fronds. Yet beneath this calm lies the invisible tension of preparation, strategy, and anticipation. The movements of fleets, the plans of commanders, and the courage of individuals all contribute to a delicate equilibrium, one that will soon be disrupted by the dramatic events of the Battle of Midway. Even in the quiet moments, the psychological weight of impending conflict is palpable. Soldiers and sailors alike carry the knowledge that the coming days will test their skill, endurance, and bravery. Fleets maneuver thousands of miles away, guided by strategy and intelligence. Decisions made in offices and aboard ships will determine the fate of men, the control of territory, and the outcome of battles. And in the midst of this tension, the calm beauty of the Pacific persists, a counterpoint to the human drama unfolding upon its surface. In reflecting on this period, it becomes clear that the rising tensions in the Pacific were not simply the result of military movements, but a complex interplay of strategy, ambition, and circumstance. Japan's desire for dominance, the United States' need to recover and respond, and the geographic realities of the Pacific all combined to create a situation of profound significance. Every island, every fleet, and every decision played a role in shaping the events that would soon unfold, culminating in the dramatic confrontation at Midway. And so, as we immerse ourselves in this story, let us picture the vast Pacific, serene yet charged with anticipation. Imagine Midway, quiet and modest, standing as a sentinel in the midst of the ocean. Picture fleets maneuvering far across the water, pilots preparing for missions, and strategists calculating the intricate dance of war. Feel the tension building, subtle yet undeniable, as the stage is set for one of the most pivotal battles of the Pacific War. The calm and the tension coexist, a duality that defines this moment in history. Waves lap gently against the shore, the sun casts long shadows across the sands, and life continues its quiet rhythm. Yet just beyond sight, decisions are being made, forces are being positioned, and the inexorable movement toward conflict is underway. It is a delicate balance, one that will soon tip, transforming peace into action, tranquility into the roar of battle. In the vastness of the Pacific, two men stand at the center of a story that is equal parts strategy, courage, and fate. Each commands fleets, each makes decisions that will ripple across thousands of miles of ocean, and each carries the weight of their nation's hopes, fears, and ambitions. To understand the Battle of Midway, we must first understand the minds, personalities, and strategies of the men who guided their forces through this pivotal conflict. On one side stands Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the mastermind behind Japan's naval ambitions. A man of intellect and vision, Yamamoto had studied the art of war with meticulous care. He understood the importance of aircraft carriers, the potential of air power, and the necessity of precise planning. His education included studies in the United States, where he observed the industrial and military strength of his future adversaries. He was a strategist who knew that the Pacific was a theater not only of ships and guns, but of foresight and timing. Yamamoto's plan for Midway was audacious, one that required boldness, coordination, and a delicate understanding of human and mechanical limits. Yamamoto was not a man of recklessness, though his plan may have seemed daring to outsiders. He weighed risks carefully, calculating every angle and anticipating possible responses. He understood the power of surprise, the importance of intelligence, and the need for decisiveness. Yet, beneath this analytical mind lay a complexity of character, a deep understanding of human nature, a respect for courage, and an awareness that the outcomes of war were never entirely under one's control. He was aware that even the best-laid plans could falter, and yet he pursued them with determination, knowing that bold action could yield results far greater than caution. On the other side of the Pacific stands Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, the Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Calm, composed, and thoughtful, Nimitz was a man of quiet confidence. He understood the pressures of command, the fragility of morale, and the necessity of precise intelligence. Unlike Yamamoto, who relied on bold maneuvers and calculated risks, Nimitz's strength lay in analysis, preparation, and the ability to anticipate the enemy's moves. He studied reports meticulously, evaluated intelligence with care, and coordinated his forces with an eye toward both efficiency and adaptability. Nimitz's leadership style reflected a deep understanding of both human and mechanical limitations. He knew that men needed clarity, confidence, and purpose to perform under extreme pressure. He understood that ships, planes, and weapons were only as effective as the people who operated them. And he recognized that the vastness of the Pacific created both opportunities and vulnerabilities. Opportunities for strategic positioning, and vulnerabilities that could be exploited if the enemy acted decisively. The stage was thus set. Two brilliant commanders, each with unique strengths, each preparing for a confrontation that would test strategy, courage, and endurance. Yamamoto plotted to draw the U.S. fleet into a trap, hoping to deliver a decisive blow that would cripple American naval power. Nimitz, informed by intelligence and guided by foresight, sought to anticipate these moves and turn them to his advantage. Across the ocean, their plans intersected, creating a delicate balance of anticipation, preparation, and tension. Understanding their strategies requires imagining the Pacific as a living, dynamic stage. Fleets were not simply collections of ships, they were instruments of strategy, each vessel a tool with a specific purpose. Aircraft carriers became the centerpieces of naval power, capable of projecting force across vast distances. Battleships provided firepower, but their role was evolving, giving way to the flexibility and reach of carrier-based aircraft. Submarines patrolled silently beneath the waves, invisible yet potent, capable of altering the balance with a single well-placed torpedo. Every ship, every plane, every maneuver was part of a larger dance, orchestrated by the minds of Yamamoto and Nimitz. Yamamoto's plan for Midway relied heavily on the element of surprise. He intended to lure American forces into a trap by attacking the island and anticipating the U.S. response. His fleet was composed of 4 aircraft carriers, along with battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. Air groups were carefully assigned, pilots trained for precision strikes, and coordination rehearsed to ensure timing and effectiveness. Yamamoto understood that success depended not only on firepower, but also on the ability to anticipate human behavior. The decisions of commanders, the timing of reinforcements, and the responses of those under attack. In contrast, Nimitz approached the situation with careful calculation. Forewarned by intelligence that Japanese forces were planning an attack on Midway, he positioned his carriers strategically, choosing locations that would allow for both defense and counterattack. He relied on codebreakers who had intercepted Japanese communications, translating fragments of plans into actionable knowledge. With this information, he could anticipate movements, prepare ambushes, and coordinate his forces with precision. Nimitz's strategy emphasized adaptability, using the enemy's assumptions against them, and striking at the critical moment when opportunity and preparation aligned. The human element in strategy cannot be overstated. Both commanders understood that decisions were made not in isolation, but in concert with the men who executed them. Pilots trained tirelessly, learning to take off and land on carriers under challenging conditions. Sailors maintained engines, weapons, and communications with meticulous care. Every member of each fleet played a role in translating strategy into action, and yet, despite preparation, uncertainty remained. The vastness of the Pacific, the unpredictability of weather, and the chaos of battle introduced variables that no amount of planning could fully control. To comprehend the depth of their strategies, it helps to envision the fleets themselves. Yamamoto's carriers moved like silent predators, each ship a nucleus of power, its decks alive with aircraft ready for deployment. Planes were fueled, armed, and maintained with exacting precision. Pilots went through checks, rehearsals, and briefings, their confidence bolstered by training and their nerves sharpened by anticipation. The Japanese fleet's coordination was a testament to planning, discipline, and the careful orchestration of complex operations across an ocean of unimaginable scale. Nimitz's forces, though fewer in number and recovering from previous losses, operated with a different advantage: knowledge. Codebreakers in Hawaii had uncovered Japanese intentions, allowing the U.S. Navy to anticipate movements and prepare a response. Carriers were positioned with care, aircraft readied for rapid deployment, and reconnaissance missions planned to maintain situational awareness. Nimitz relied on adaptability, using the element of unpredictability to offset the numerical advantage of the Japanese fleet. His strategy reflected patience, understanding, and an acute awareness of both his own strengths and the vulnerabilities of the enemy. The tension between these two approaches, bold risk versus careful calculation, defines much of the story of Midway. Yamamoto's reliance on surprise and decisive action contrasted with Nimitz's measured anticipation and adaptability. Each approach carried risks and potential rewards. A single miscalculation could lead to disaster, while a single stroke of insight could alter the course of history. And across the vast expanse of the Pacific, these strategies moved silently toward collision, the calm of the ocean masking the invisible maneuvering of powerful forces. To visualize their command, imagine the bridge of a Japanese carrier at dawn. Officers confer quietly, instruments monitored, signals exchanged. Pilots check their planes, mechanics make final adjustments, and every movement is precise, rehearsed, and purposeful. The ocean stretches endlessly, reflecting light off waves that seem serene yet conceal the power of thousands of tons of steel cutting silently through the water. Yamamoto's vision unfolds here in a series of deliberate, coordinated actions that will soon meet the calculated positioning of his adversary. Meanwhile, in Hawaiian offices and aboard U.S. ships, Nimitz and his staff analyze intelligence, plotting movements and counterstrikes. Maps are spread across tables, signals intercepted and decoded, options considered and weighed. Each decision is informed by careful calculation, historical knowledge, and a recognition of the human element in warfare. Nimitz's calm demeanor inspires confidence, translating strategic insight into actionable plans that prepare his fleet for the uncertainty of the coming battle. The interplay of these strategies creates a tension that is almost cinematic. Imagine the Pacific as a living chessboard, each fleet a set of pieces moving with intention and purpose, the commander's minds guiding each maneuver. Aircraft carriers act as queens, projecting power across vast distances, while smaller ships and submarines serve as rooks, bishops, and knights, each with a specialized role. Pilots and sailors are the pawns, their actions crucial in translating strategy into results. And over it all, the minds of Yamamoto and Nimitz observe, anticipate, and adapt, shaping the unfolding narrative with each decision. This human dimension, leadership, foresight, courage, and adaptability, becomes central to understanding the Battle of Midway. The strategies of Yamamoto and Nimitz are not abstract concepts. They are living, breathing plans executed by thousands of individuals who carry their training, skill, and will into the uncertain theater of the Pacific. Every action, from launching a plane to maintaining a ship's engine, contributes to the realization of these strategies, illustrating the profound interconnection between planning and execution. As the fleets converge, the calm of the Pacific contrasts sharply with the intensity of command. Waves lap against the hulls of ships, the sun glints off water and metal, and the air is filled with the faint sounds of engines, signals, and human activity. Yet beneath this surface, strategies move silently like invisible currents, guiding every action and reaction. Both commanders, each with their own vision, continue to anticipate, adapt, and refine, understanding that the coming moments will test not only plans, but also the courage, skill, and endurance of every man involved. And so the story of Midway is not only a story of ships, planes, and battles, it is a story of minds in command, of human intelligence and decision-making under extreme pressure. Yamamoto's daring and Nimitz's foresight converge across thousands of miles, their strategies unfolding silently until the moment when the ocean itself becomes the stage for the drama of war. It is in this interplay of planning, anticipation, and courage that the essence of Midway is revealed, a tale of strategy, leadership, and the unpredictable forces of fate. In the vast expanse of the Pacific, strategy unfolds not in the heat of battle, but in the quiet, deliberate planning that precedes it. For Japan, Midway was more than just a small atoll of sand and coral. It was a key to controlling the Central Pacific, a stepping stone that could shape the trajectory of the war. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Japan's naval strategy, envisioned an operation that combined precision, audacity, and meticulous timing. To understand the Battle of Midway, we must first immerse ourselves in the Japanese plans, their ambitions, and the careful orchestration that guided their movements. The goal was clear: to draw the U.S. Pacific Fleet into a trap, deliver a decisive blow, and secure Japanese dominance in the Pacific. The plan relied on the element of surprise, the coordination of multiple fleets, and the execution of complex maneuvers over vast distances. Yamamoto understood that the success of this operation depended not only on military power, but also on the ability to anticipate the enemy's decisions, exploit vulnerabilities, and act decisively at the right moment. The first step in the plan involved the deployment of 4 of Japan's most powerful aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. These carriers were the crown jewels of the fleet, floating air bases capable of projecting force across hundreds of miles of ocean. Each was loaded with aircraft, dive bombers, torpedo bombers, and fighters, all meticulously prepared for rapid deployment. Pilots ran through checks, rehearsals, and briefings, understanding that their actions would be pivotal in the success of the operation. Engineers and mechanics worked tirelessly, ensuring that engines, catapults, and aircraft systems were in perfect working order. Supporting the carriers were battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, forming a protective screen around the central striking force. Each vessel had a role, some designed to defend the carriers from potential attacks, others to engage in offensive actions if the opportunity arose. Submarines patrolled silently beneath the waves, positioned to intercept enemy movements and provide early warnings. Mines, reconnaissance planes, and supply ships all contributed to a carefully coordinated network, each element synchronized to the rhythm of the operation. The centerpiece of the plan was the attack on Midway itself. Yamamoto intended to seize the island, neutralize its airfield, and lure the American carriers into a position where they could be destroyed. This required precise timing, as the movements of fleets across thousands of miles of ocean had to converge almost simultaneously. Reconnaissance planes were dispatched to monitor the island, assess defenses, and provide real-time intelligence. Signals were exchanged with care, ensuring that coordination remained intact despite the vast distances and the unpredictability of the Pacific environment. The Japanese command also relied on deception. A diversionary strike was planned against the Aleutian Islands to the north, designed to draw attention and resources away from the true objective. By splitting the enemy's focus, Yamamoto sought to create confusion, forcing the Americans to divide their forces and making them more vulnerable to the primary attack on Midway. This multi-layered approach demonstrated not only strategic insight, but also a deep understanding of human behavior, anticipating how the enemy might respond to perceived threats and using that anticipation to Japan's advantage. At the heart of this plan was timing. The operation required precise coordination between carriers, battleships, cruisers, and submarines. Aircraft had to take off, reach their targets, strike with accuracy, and return to the carriers, all within carefully calculated windows. Refueling, rearming, and maintenance had to occur without delay. Signals had to be transmitted and received with clarity. A single misstep, a delay of even a few minutes, could jeopardize the entire operation. The complexity of the plan underscored the audacity of Yamamoto's vision, a combination of boldness, preparation, and trust in the skill of his men. The human element was equally critical. Pilots trained rigorously, mastering dive-bombing techniques, torpedo runs, and formation flying. Navigators studied charts, anticipating the currents, winds, and hidden reefs of the Pacific. Sailors maintained equipment with painstaking care, knowing that their work would determine the effectiveness of the fleet. Engineers ensured that engines ran smoothly, catapults launched aircraft safely, and communications remained uninterrupted. Every individual's skill, focus, and dedication contributed to the execution of a plan that relied on the seamless integration of countless moving parts. Yamamoto also understood the importance of morale and leadership. Commanders aboard the carriers were entrusted with autonomy to make decisions in the heat of the moment, guided by the overarching strategy but empowered to adapt to unforeseen circumstances. Pilots and sailors were motivated not only by duty, but by confidence in their leadership and trust in their training. This combination of discipline, skill, and morale was essential to the success of such a complex operation across a theater as vast and unpredictable as the Pacific Ocean. The Japanese plan was both ambitious and risky. By concentrating forces in a relatively narrow area and relying on the element of surprise, Yamamoto accepted that failure could have catastrophic consequences. A miscalculation, an unexpected enemy maneuver, or an accident could unravel months of preparation in an instant. Yet the potential rewards were immense. Control of Midway would provide strategic advantage, secure sea lanes, and possibly cripple the American Pacific Fleet. It was a high-stakes gamble, one that required precision, courage, and an unwavering commitment to execution. To visualize the scale of the operation, imagine the Japanese fleet moving silently across the Pacific. The carriers glide through calm waters, their decks alive with activity. Pilots perform final checks, crews prepare aircraft for launch, and signals are transmitted with meticulous care. Battleships and cruisers flank the carriers, their guns trained and ready, while destroyers patrol the perimeter, vigilant for threats. Submarines glide beneath the surface, unseen, their presence a hidden layer of strategy. The fleet moves as a single coordinated organism, each element contributing to the larger plan with precision and purpose. Meanwhile, Midway itself remained unaware of the approach. Soldiers continued their routines, patrolling beaches, maintaining equipment, and standing watch from observation towers. Aircraft sat on runways, engines silent, pilots prepared for routine patrols rather than the unprecedented assault that was approaching. The island's calm environment belied the scale of the operation heading its way, a juxtaposition of serenity and impending chaos that would soon define the battle. The Japanese approach also considered logistics and supply. Fuel, ammunition, and food were meticulously planned, ensuring that the fleet could operate effectively across thousands of miles of ocean. Support ships provided vital replenishment, allowing carriers and battleships to remain at sea for extended periods. Maintenance crews worked tirelessly to ensure that every system functioned at peak efficiency, knowing that even minor malfunctions could compromise the success of the mission. Every detail, from fuel calculations to navigation, was carefully considered and integrated into the broader strategy. The role of intelligence and reconnaissance was central to the Japanese plan. Scouts and observation planes monitored Midway, assessing defenses and reporting positions. Submarines patrolled strategic locations, ready to intercept enemy movements. Signals intelligence, though less advanced than the U.S. codebreaking efforts, provided situational awareness and guidance for fleet movements. Yamamoto relied on the combination of technology, observation, and human skill to maintain the element of surprise while coordinating the complex array of forces under his command. Psychologically, the plan demanded confidence, discipline, and focus. Sailors, pilots, and officers were acutely aware of the stakes, understanding that the operation's success hinged on the flawless execution of strategy. Morale was nurtured through training, preparation, and leadership. Every man was part of a larger narrative, contributing to a coordinated effort that relied on both skill and trust. The success of Midway was not merely a matter of equipment or numbers. It depended on human performance under pressure, on the ability to act decisively in the midst of uncertainty. Yamamoto's plan, with all its precision and ambition, was a masterpiece of naval strategy. Yet, as history would reveal, even the most carefully crafted strategies are vulnerable to the unpredictable nature of war. Variables beyond the commander's control, weather, timing, human error, and intelligence, could alter the outcome in ways no plan could fully anticipate. This tension between meticulous planning and the chaos of battle is at the heart of the story of Midway, highlighting both the brilliance and the limitations of human strategy in the theater of war. As the fleet approached Midway, the ocean remained calm, a deceptive tranquility masking the impending clash. Pilots prepared for their first sorties, sailors completed last-minute checks, and officers reviewed coordinates, timings, and contingencies. The operation was a dance of precision, each movement choreographed to the second, yet ready to adapt to unforeseen circumstances. The calm waters, the golden sunlight, and the vast horizon all seemed to pause in anticipation, as if nature itself recognized the significance of what was about to unfold. In summary, the Japanese plans for Midway exemplified the combination of audacity, precision, and human skill that defines great military operations. Yamamoto's vision relied on coordination, timing, and anticipation, executed through a fleet of aircraft carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and submarines. The plan required meticulous preparation, disciplined execution, and unwavering confidence in both strategy and personnel. Yet, like all plans in the theater of war, it remained subject to the unpredictable forces of chance, intelligence, and human decision-making. As we picture this vast operation, it is easy to feel both awe and anticipation. The Japanese fleet, moving with precision across the Pacific, embodies the pinnacle of strategic planning, while Midway, calm and unprepared, represents the stage upon which destiny will soon be tested. Waves lap gently against the decks of ships, the sun glints off water and steel, and the human element, pilots, sailors, and officers, remains at the heart of this unfolding story. The stage is set, the pieces are in motion, and history waits for the moment when strategy meets reality in the dramatic confrontation at Midway. While Japan meticulously crafted its plans for Midway, the United States faced a vastly different challenge, recovering from the shock of Pearl Harbor while preparing to confront an ambitious and well-coordinated enemy. In the months following December 7, 1941, the U.S. Navy worked tirelessly to regroup, reorganize, and prepare for the inevitable clash in the Pacific. What made this period remarkable was not only the rebuilding of resources, but also the emergence of intelligence as a decisive factor in shaping the course of the war. The commander at the center of American preparations was Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, a man whose calm, deliberate demeanor would prove essential in the coming days. Nimitz understood that numerical superiority alone would not guarantee victory. Success depended on positioning, timing, foresight, and, above all, intelligence. In a theater as vast as the Pacific, information was as valuable as ships or aircraft. Knowing where the enemy was, what they intended, and when they would strike provided an advantage that could offset Japan's temporary strength and audacity. From the early months of 1942, the U.S. Navy began to focus on signals intelligence, codebreaking, and reconnaissance. The team of cryptanalysts at Station Hypo in Pearl Harbor, led by Commander Joseph Rochefort, played a pivotal role. These men worked tirelessly day and night, breaking Japanese codes, intercepting messages, and analyzing patterns that would reveal enemy movements. Their work was painstaking, precise, and often invisible to those on the front lines, yet it would prove critical in shaping American strategy at Midway. One of the most remarkable breakthroughs involved deciphering the Japanese Navy's coded messages, which used the JN-25 code system. This code was complex, constantly evolving, and designed to prevent exactly the kind of insight that Nimitz's team sought. But through careful analysis, persistence, and ingenuity, the cryptanalysts began to identify patterns, substitutions, and recurring phrases. They worked with photographs, maps, and logs, comparing messages from different dates, tracking inconsistencies, and gradually peeling back the layers of Japanese communications. It was during this process that the Americans learned of a key detail. The Japanese were planning to attack a location referred to as AF. While the true identity of AF was unknown initially, Commander Rochefort and his team hypothesized that it referred to Midway Island. To confirm this, they devised a clever ruse. The Americans transmitted a message from Midway stating that the island's fresh water supply was low, then waited to see if the Japanese mentioned this detail in their communications. When intercepted messages later included references to AF's water shortage, the codebreakers confirmed that AF was indeed Midway. This combination of ingenuity and intelligence gave Nimitz a remarkable advantage, foreknowledge of the enemy's target, which would allow him to prepare a calculated response. With this intelligence in hand, Nimitz began orchestrating a series of preparations designed to position the U.S. forces optimally for the coming battle. The U.S. Navy deployed 3 aircraft carriers, USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and USS Yorktown, to strategic positions northeast of Midway, creating an ambush that could take advantage of both surprise and positioning. These carriers, while fewer in number than the Japanese fleet, carried trained air crews, well-maintained aircraft, and the advantage of intelligence-informed strategy. In addition to carrier positioning, reconnaissance played a vital role. Patrol planes flew over vast stretches of ocean, mapping potential enemy movements and scouting for signs of the approaching Japanese fleet. Submarines were dispatched to strategic locations, tasked with providing early warning of enemy movements and, if possible, disrupting their plans. Every reconnaissance flight, every patrol, and every intercepted message added pieces to the puzzle, helping the Americans anticipate the enemy's moves with increasing precision. Midway itself was also strengthened. Although the atoll was small, its strategic importance demanded careful fortification. Coastal defenses were reinforced, anti-aircraft guns were positioned, and runways maintained for maximum readiness. Soldiers and pilots trained for rapid response, drills were conducted with precision, and aircraft were positioned to take off at a moment's notice. Midway, though isolated, became a critical node in the larger American strategy, a forward base whose readiness could influence the unfolding battle. The American preparations extended beyond the physical realm to include training, planning, and coordination. Pilots rehearsed dive-bombing techniques, torpedo runs, and formation flying, understanding that precision and timing could determine the outcome of engagements. Aircrews reviewed maps, flight paths, and enemy positions, internalizing intelligence that had been painstakingly gathered. Sailors on carriers maintained engines, armaments, and communications, ensuring that their ships could respond instantly to orders. Every member of the fleet, from officers to enlisted men, contributed to the preparedness that would become critical in the coming days. Nimitz's leadership emphasized trust and responsibility. Commanders aboard ships were empowered to make tactical decisions in real time, guided by overarching strategy but able to adapt to the fluid circumstances of battle. This decentralization allowed for flexibility, ensuring that the U.S. forces could respond to unforeseen developments while still executing the broader plan. Confidence in leadership and in one another's capabilities created cohesion, morale, and the readiness required for the intense challenges ahead. Strategic timing was another key element of American preparation. Nimitz and his staff calculated the optimal positions for carriers, determining when and where they should be to maximize the element of surprise. Refueling, resupplying, and positioning of aircraft were meticulously timed, creating a system in which the fleet could launch strikes quickly, respond to enemy movements, and maintain operational readiness over extended periods. Coordination between Midway Island, the carriers, and reconnaissance units formed a network that allowed for rapid response and adaptability. American preparations were not limited to military hardware and personnel. Morale, communication, and resilience were equally important. Soldiers stationed on Midway faced the psychological weight of potential attack, yet training, discipline, and leadership helped sustain confidence. Sailors and pilots understood the stakes, motivated by a sense of duty, camaraderie, and the knowledge that their actions would influence the broader course of the war. Even in the vast, unpredictable Pacific, the human element, confidence, courage, and perseverance, was as crucial as intelligence and firepower. It is important to visualize these preparations as a dynamic, living process. In the pre-dawn light, aircraft decks bustle with activity. Planes are fueled, weapons checked, and crews briefed. Officers confer over maps and signals, adjusting plans in real time based on new intelligence. Patrol planes soar over the horizon, scanning the water for any signs of enemy approach. Submarines glide silently beneath the surface, watching and waiting. Every action, every movement is part of an intricate choreography designed to maximize the effectiveness of American forces while minimizing vulnerability. The intelligence advantage also allowed for innovative strategies. Knowing the Japanese target, Nimitz could set traps, anticipate attacks, and position his carriers to strike at the most critical moment. This foreknowledge transformed what could have been a defensive stance into a proactive strategy, allowing the U.S. Navy to seize the initiative despite being outnumbered in terms of carriers. It was a testament to the power of intelligence, preparation, and leadership working in concert. As the Japanese fleet approached, the tension across the Pacific grew, yet the Americans maintained a calm readiness. Pilots prepared for combat sorties with steady focus, sailors ensured that every system was operational, and officers coordinated movements with precision. Intelligence, training, and preparation converged to create a situation in which the U.S. forces, though fewer in number, were positioned to turn the Japanese plans against them. This combination of foresight, strategy, and preparedness was critical to the American approach. While the Japanese relied on surprise and bold execution, the United States relied on intelligence-informed positioning, meticulous preparation, and the ability to respond dynamically to unfolding events. The stage was set for a confrontation in which knowledge, timing, and human skill would determine the outcome of one of the most decisive battles in history. The calm before the storm was punctuated by small, deliberate actions. Aircraft were inspected, engines warmed, and weapons loaded. Sailors patrolled decks, maintaining vigilance, while officers monitored communications and signals. Midway Island soldiers conducted drills, checked equipment, and reinforced defenses. Across the vast ocean, reconnaissance flights continued, each patrol adding to the growing mosaic of information that would guide the fleet. It was a period of quiet intensity where preparation, intelligence, and human skill intersected in anticipation of the dramatic confrontation to come. In summary, American preparations and intelligence at Midway were a combination of foresight, coordination, and meticulous execution. From the codebreakers at Pearl Harbor to the pilots on carriers, every individual played a role in transforming information into strategy. Nimitz's calm leadership, the tireless work of cryptanalysts, and the readiness of Midway Island's forces created an advantage that would prove decisive in the coming days. The interplay of knowledge, positioning, and human skill allowed the U.S. Navy to confront a formidable enemy with confidence, adaptability, and courage. As we picture this stage, imagine the vast Pacific, calm yet charged with anticipation. Aircraft carriers glide through the waters, planes ready to launch at a moment's notice. Sailors maintain systems with quiet precision. Cryptanalysts continue their tireless work, and officers coordinate movements across thousands of miles of ocean. Midway Island stands prepared, a sentinel whose readiness embodies the intersection of intelligence, training, and human courage. The calm before the storm is tangible, yet beneath it the forces of strategy, skill, and preparation are poised to shape history in ways that will echo across the Pacific and beyond. The vast Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly, its deep blue waters shimmering under the golden light of dawn. To the casual observer, it was calm, serene, and timeless. Yet beneath this tranquil surface, two colossal forces moved silently, each a living instrument of war, each carrying the weight of nations, ambitions, and destinies. The Battle of Midway was no longer a distant possibility, it was imminent. The fleets of Japan and the United States, guided by the intellect, strategy, and foresight of their commanders, were on a collision course. The approach of the fleets is a story of anticipation, precision, and tension, a prelude to the moment when strategy meets action. On the Japanese side, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto's striking force had left the safety of home ports weeks earlier, crossing thousands of miles of open ocean with precision and coordination. The carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu glided across the waves, each a floating city of steel and air power. Battleships and cruisers flanked the carriers, forming protective screens that shimmered under the sunlight. Destroyers patrolled the periphery, vigilant for threats, while submarines slid silently beneath the surface, almost invisible, yet poised to intercept or strike at critical moments. Every ship, plane, and sailor played a role in a choreography of immense scale. Within the carriers, the decks were alive with preparation. Pilots inspected their planes, mechanics completed final adjustments, and flight officers coordinated sorties with meticulous care. Each plane represented not only offensive capability, but also the culmination of countless hours of training, calculation, and coordination. Yamamoto's plan required these aircraft to strike Midway with precision, neutralize its air defenses, and then position themselves to intercept any American response. The timing of each launch, the alignment of each squadron, and the readiness of every crew were all essential to the unfolding strategy. Meanwhile, the U.S. Pacific Fleet, under Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, had moved carriers into positions northeast of Midway. The USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and the damaged but resilient USS Yorktown formed a defensive and offensive line, relying on intelligence, positioning, and anticipation. Every move was informed by the painstaking work of codebreakers who had revealed Japanese intentions. Patrol planes scouted vast expanses of ocean, while submarines watched silently for signs of the approaching enemy. Nimitz's strategy emphasized adaptability. Knowing the Japanese approach allowed for preemptive positioning, yet the vastness of the ocean and the unpredictability of battle required constant vigilance. As the fleets drew closer to Midway, the human element became increasingly pronounced. Sailors maintained engines and communications, officers monitored navigation and signals, and pilots prepared for long flights over the open sea. The psychological tension was palpable. Every man knew that the coming days would test endurance, skill, and courage, yet there was also a sense of calm readiness, a confidence built on training, preparation, and trust in leadership. This equilibrium between tension and composure would prove crucial when the fleets finally converged. The approach of the fleets was also a test of logistics. The Japanese had to maintain coordination across thousands of miles, keeping fuel, ammunition, and supplies synchronized. Carriers had to manage the launch and recovery of aircraft while remaining prepared for defensive action. Battleships and cruisers maintained formation, communicating silently through signals and radio transmissions. Submarines patrolled assigned sectors, watching for enemy movement, while reconnaissance planes scouted ahead to ensure the fleet remained undetected. Every element was interdependent, illustrating the complexity and precision required for an operation of such magnitude. Weather and the environment added another layer of challenge. The Pacific, while often beautiful, could be unpredictable. Clouds, winds, and currents all influenced navigation and visibility. Pilots had to account for wind speeds during takeoffs and landings on the carriers. Sailors had to adjust for rolling waves and changing sea conditions. Every maneuver required an understanding of both the natural world and the mechanical capabilities of ships and aircraft. The fleet's movement was thus not only a matter of strategy, but also a constant negotiation with the ocean itself. The Japanese approach relied on secrecy and surprise. Every effort was made to avoid detection, to prevent Midway or U.S. carriers from learning of the impending attack. Signals were minimized, routes carefully chosen, and reconnaissance conducted under strict operational security. Yamamoto understood that exposure could compromise the entire plan, and the discipline of the fleet reflected this awareness. Crew members, officers, and pilots all moved in harmony with the principle that information, timing, and execution were inseparable from success. For the Americans, the approach of the Japanese fleet was both a warning and an opportunity. With intelligence in hand, Nimitz could anticipate the enemy's position, timing, and possible maneuvers. Patrol planes flew the endless stretches of ocean, scanning for smoke plumes, ship silhouettes, or the glint of sunlight on metal. Submarines positioned themselves to intercept or provide early alerts. Every piece of information gathered during this approach would help shape the American response, allowing for calculated decisions when the fleets finally confronted one another. Visualizing the fleet's approach highlights the scale and tension. Japanese carriers glide through calm seas, their decks humming with activity. Mechanics adjust engines, pilots run final checks, and officers review coordinates. Waves lap against the hulls, reflecting sunlight that glints off steel. In parallel, the American carriers maintain readiness, crews prepared for action, reconnaissance planes soaring over the horizon, and officers coordinating movements across thousands of miles of ocean. The Pacific becomes a silent stage, a vast arena in which strategy, human skill, and anticipation will soon collide. As the distance between the opposing forces decreased, the nervous energy aboard both fleets became palpable yet restrained. Sailors adjusted rigging, pilots prepared fuel and ordnance, and officers coordinated signals, maps, and communication lines. Every minor adjustment could influence the effectiveness of the fleet's actions in the critical moments ahead. Yamamoto and Nimitz, though thousands of miles apart, were each observing the unfolding approach through instruments, reports, and intelligence, guiding their forces toward a pivotal encounter. Timing continued to play a critical role. Japanese carriers were scheduled to strike Midway at dawn, relying on precise navigation and coordinated launches. The Americans, anticipating this, prepared aircraft for immediate response, aiming to exploit any opening in the Japanese formation. Both sides were moving in a delicate balance, where seconds and miles mattered, and where human skill, anticipation, and decision-making intersected with mechanical execution and natural conditions. The approach also highlighted the role of reconnaissance and early detection. Japanese scout planes flew over potential target areas, confirming positions and observing defenses. American patrols scoured the ocean, looking for signs of the approaching fleet. Submarines monitored key approaches, ready to provide alerts or intercept enemy vessels. Each movement, each observation contributed to the broader intelligence picture, shaping the tactical decisions that would unfold in the coming engagement. Psychologically, the approach tested endurance, discipline, and focus. Sailors faced the monotony of long hours at sea, punctuated by bursts of intense activity. Pilots prepared mentally for extended flights, maintaining focus despite fatigue and the vastness of the ocean. Officers and commanders balanced anticipation with caution, ensuring that every decision was informed by both intelligence and experience. This combination of human factors, morale, focus, and endurance, was as critical to the approach as strategy, positioning, or firepower. The calm of the ocean, the soft lapping of waves, and the distant horizon provided a deceptive tranquility. Beneath this surface, fleets moved with silent precision, executing strategies that would soon intersect in dramatic fashion. Every engine, every plane, every sailor was part of a larger narrative, a prelude to the storm that would erupt over Midway. The approach was not simply a movement of ships. It was the unfolding of a meticulously orchestrated ballet of strategy, human skill, and anticipation, set against the infinite canvas of the Pacific. At this stage, both fleets were aware in varying degrees of the stakes and risks. The Japanese relied on surprise and the audacity of their plan. The Americans relied on intelligence, preparation, and positioning. Both forces carried confidence, discipline, and the weight of their nation's expectations. As they drew closer, every decision, every maneuver, and every observation became increasingly consequential, a delicate interplay that would soon culminate in the decisive moments of battle. The human element remained central. Sailors, pilots, and officers carried out tasks with precision, understanding that their actions could influence the outcome in ways both immediate and profound. Training, preparation, and trust in leadership allowed them to maintain composure, even as the distance between fleets narrowed. Every observation, adjustment, and decision was executed with a balance of caution, anticipation, and readiness for the unpredictable. By the time the fleets were within striking distance, the Pacific had become a theater of tension, anticipation, and calculated action. Japanese carriers were positioned for the dawn assault, their air groups ready. American carriers were strategically located to intercept and respond. Submarines and patrol planes added layers of observation and early warning. The ocean, serene yet charged with potential, awaited the first movements that would transform strategy into action, anticipation into engagement, and preparation into the reality of war. In summary, the approach of the fleets represents a critical prelude to the Battle of Midway. It was a period of precise navigation, disciplined preparation, and anticipation. where intelligence, strategy, and human skill intersected across thousands of miles of ocean. Both Japanese and American forces moved with purpose, their actions choreographed to timing, positioning, and foresight. This approach laid the foundation for the decisive engagement to come, illustrating the complexity, scale, and human dimension of naval warfare in the vast Pacific theater. As we imagine this stage, picture endless blue waves reflecting golden sunlight, the hum of engines, the quiet preparation of aircraft decks, and the tension of crews anticipating the moments ahead. The fleets move like silent giants, aware of each other yet separated by distance, their commanders guiding every maneuver. The calm, infinite Pacific is now a stage of impending action where strategy, anticipation, and human skill converge, ready to shape history in the dramatic confrontation at Midway. The first light of dawn broke over the Pacific, painting the endless expanse of ocean with soft hues of pink and gold. For hours, the sea had remained calm, a deceptive serenity that belied the forces maneuvering just beyond the horizon. The fleets of Japan and the United States were now within striking distance, each aware that the moment of action was imminent. The first strikes of the Battle of Midway were about to unfold, a series of calculated, courageous, and fateful movements that would set the stage for one of the most decisive confrontations in naval history. On the Japanese side, the carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu were alive with preparation. Flight decks were bustling as pilots conducted final checks. Ordnance officers loaded bombs and torpedoes, and mechanics ensured that engines ran smoothly. Pilots reviewed flight plans, taking in maps, coordinates, and reconnaissance reports. The operation relied heavily on timing, with waves of aircraft scheduled to strike Midway Island, neutralize defenses, and then return to carriers ready for further engagements. Each step required precision, coordination, and trust in the skill of every individual aboard the fleet. At precisely dawn, Japanese aircraft began to lift into the sky. Torpedo bombers, dive bombers, and fighter escorts took off in formation, the hum of engines blending with the gentle rhythm of the ocean waves. From above, the Pacific stretched endlessly, a canvas of blue and gold, while below the carriers glided steadily, maintaining formation and protection. Every plane carried the weight of the mission and the expectations of a nation. Every crew understood the stakes, yet executed their roles with disciplined calm, the quiet focus of professionals trained for moments exactly like this. Meanwhile, Midway's defenders watched the sky for the approaching threat. Soldiers manned anti-aircraft guns, while pilots prepared to take off from the island's airstrips. Intelligence had hinted at the Japanese approach, yet the reality of hundreds of aircraft appearing on the horizon was still daunting. Amid the rising sun, tension mixed with determination as the defenders readied themselves for the first encounter. The island, small but strategically critical, became the focal point of immense movements, a stage upon which courage and skill would soon collide with calculated aggression. The initial Japanese strikes targeted the island's airfields, aiming to destroy planes on the ground and weaken defensive capabilities. Dive bombers swooped from the sky with precision, releasing ordnance in carefully calculated patterns. Explosions shook the runways and hangars, sending plumes of smoke and debris into the calm morning air. Torpedo bombers approached at lower altitudes, weaving through defensive fire with courage and focus. Fighters provided cover, engaging enemy planes and attempting to dominate the skies above Midway. The orchestration of these movements reflected the extensive planning, training, and coordination that had defined the Japanese operation from the start. On the American side, the response was both immediate and informed by foresight. Pilots from Midway scrambled into the skies, taking off in small squadrons to intercept incoming aircraft. Anti-aircraft crews opened fire, coordinating to create a defensive web of projectiles designed to disrupt bombing runs and protect critical assets. The American defenders, though smaller in number, relied on preparation, discipline, and strategic placement to counter the initial Japanese strikes. Each decision, from takeoff timing to targeting, carried immense weight, shaping the immediate dynamics of the battle. The first wave of attacks created a dramatic interplay between offense and defense. Bombs struck runways, hangars, and installations, creating plumes of smoke that curled toward the rising sun. Explosions and fire illuminated the scene, yet amidst the chaos, pilots executed maneuvers with skill and precision. Dive bombers angled steeply toward their targets, releasing ordnance with accuracy honed through months of practice. Torpedo bombers navigated the open water, braving defensive fire to deliver payloads that could alter the course of the battle. The sky and sea became a theater of tension, a collision of strategy, skill, and chance. As Japanese aircraft returned to carriers, the crews prepared for the next wave. Decks were cleared, planes refueled and rearmed, and pilots debriefed to ensure coordination for subsequent strikes. Mechanics worked tirelessly to repair damage, adjust instruments, and maintain readiness. The rhythm of the carriers reflected a combination of precision and urgency, a continuous cycle of preparation, execution, and recovery designed to sustain operational effectiveness in the face of resistance. American carriers positioned northeast of Midway began their own strikes shortly after observing the Japanese activity. Pilots aboard USS Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown launched in coordinated waves, aiming to locate and attack Japanese carriers. Each squadron faced the vastness of the Pacific, the uncertainty of enemy positions, and the challenge of executing long-range attacks over open water. The mental focus and endurance required were immense, yet training, intelligence, and leadership guided each decision, transforming potential chaos into disciplined action. In these early strikes, the role of reconnaissance and intelligence became particularly evident. American pilots relied on information gathered from codebreakers, patrol planes, and prior observations to anticipate Japanese carrier locations. Navigation across hundreds of miles of open ocean required precision and skill, as pilots adjusted for wind, currents, and enemy movements. Each sighting of enemy ships triggered a sequence of calculated actions, blending human judgment, mechanical performance, and strategic insight into a cohesive response. The first encounters between Japanese and American aircraft were tense and chaotic. Fighter planes engaged in aerial duels, attempting to secure air superiority while protecting bombers and torpedo craft. Anti-aircraft fire from ships in Midway Island created an additional layer of challenge, forcing pilots to adapt dynamically to threats from multiple directions. Every maneuver, whether evasive, offensive, or defensive, was executed with split-second timing, requiring both courage and skill. The calm of the Pacific belied the intensity of these engagements above and below the surface. Amid the chaos, moments of heroism and skill emerged. Pilots pressed attacks despite overwhelming odds, navigating flak-filled skies with focus and determination. Bombers released payloads with precision, altering the landscape of Midway and creating conditions that would influence subsequent waves. Defensive crews, both on the island and aboard carriers, maintained discipline and composure, creating an intricate dance of offense and defense that characterized the first strikes. Every action, every decision carried consequences that rippled through the unfolding battle. Timing and coordination remained critical throughout the morning. Japanese carriers needed to cycle aircraft between launches, recover returning planes, and prepare for subsequent waves of attack. American forces had to balance the defense of Midway with offensive strikes against Japanese ships, requiring careful management of fuel, ordnance, and pilot endurance. The interplay between preparation, action, and recovery defined the rhythm of the battle, illustrating the delicate balance between strategy, human skill, and operational execution. The environment itself shaped the engagement. The rising sun, clouds, and ocean conditions influenced visibility, navigation, and targeting. Pilots adjusted flight paths to account for wind and sun glare. Anti-aircraft crews calibrated their aim based on altitude, distance, and movement. The natural elements became silent participants in the unfolding drama, subtly affecting the outcome of each strike, each maneuver, and each engagement. As the first strikes concluded, both sides assessed the immediate impact. Midway's defenses had been challenged but remained operational, while Japanese pilots returned to carriers to refuel and rearm. American strike waves had engaged Japanese forces, yet locating carriers across the vast Pacific was a complex challenge, requiring persistence, coordination, and continuous reconnaissance. The morning's events set the tone for the unfolding battle, demonstrating the critical importance of timing, preparation, and adaptability in a theater where uncertainty and skill were inseparable. Throughout the morning, communication and coordination were vital. Signals between ships, carriers, and aircraft ensured that actions were synchronized, resources allocated efficiently, and responses calibrated to emerging threats. Commanders, both Japanese and American, relied on reports, reconnaissance, and observation to adjust strategies in real time. The fluidity of these communications highlighted the human dimension of the battle, where intelligence, judgment, and decision-making intersected with mechanical performance and tactical execution. As the sun climbed higher, the first strikes faded into a tense lull, a brief interlude in which both fleets prepared for the next phase. Pilots returned to carriers, crews rearmed aircraft, and officers recalculated positions and timing. The Pacific, still calm and expansive, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the continuation of the drama unfolding above its waves. This pause, though brief, allowed for reflection, assessment, and preparation, moments that would prove critical in the decisive strikes to come. In summary, the first strikes of the Battle of Midway were a delicate balance of strategy, preparation, and human skill. Japanese aircraft struck Midway with precision, testing the island's defenses, while American forces responded with courage, coordination, and intelligence-informed action. The calm of the Pacific masked the intensity of engagements in the skies and on the ground, where timing, positioning, and adaptability were decisive. These opening moves set the stage for the decisive battles that would define the course of the confrontation, illustrating the interplay of human courage, preparation, and strategy in one of history's most dramatic naval engagements. As we visualize this morning over the Pacific, imagine the vast expanse of water reflecting the soft light of dawn, aircraft ascending and maneuvering with precision, explosions illuminating the landscape, and the disciplined focus of sailors, pilots, and officers guiding every action. The first strikes are complete, but the story is far from over. The stage is set, the players are ready, and history waits for the continuation of this extraordinary encounter above the endless, shimmering Pacific. As the sun climbed higher over the Pacific, the first strikes had passed, leaving both fleets poised for what would become the defining moments of the Battle of Midway. The ocean, still and vast, reflected a sky painted in soft blues and gentle golds, hiding the tension and precision unfolding above its surface. These moments, these turning points, would determine not only the outcome of the battle, but also the trajectory of the Pacific War. The tides of fortune, shaped by strategy, intelligence, courage, and chance, were about to shift dramatically. One of the earliest turning points occurred in the skies above Midway as Japanese air attacks met unexpectedly resilient American defenses. Despite being caught by surprise, Midway's anti-aircraft crews and defending pilots managed to inflict damage on the attackers. Planes were shot down, formations disrupted, and mission coordination strained. The defenders' ability to adapt and respond, even under overwhelming odds, demonstrated the crucial role of human skill, training, and courage. It was a subtle but critical shift, resistance that challenged the assumption of Japanese invulnerability. Meanwhile, American carriers positioned northeast of Midway prepared to strike, guided by intelligence that had revealed the Japanese objective. Pilots launched into the vast expanse of ocean, navigating hundreds of miles over open water in search of enemy carriers. This was no small feat. The vast Pacific offered almost infinite space, and spotting ships from high altitude required extraordinary skill, attention, and luck. Yet the meticulous planning, training, and intelligence gathering enabled these strike forces to locate and engage Japanese carriers with remarkable effectiveness. The first wave of American attacks faced extraordinary challenges. Torpedo squadrons flew low over the water, exposed to concentrated anti-aircraft fire from Japanese ships and fighters. Many planes were lost in these initial engagements, their crews demonstrating incredible bravery as they pressed forward despite near-certain danger. Dive bombers approached from higher altitudes, aiming to release ordnance precisely on moving targets. Coordination, timing, and precision were essential. Any error could prove fatal, yet the pilots executed with disciplined focus. It was during these moments that the tide began to shift. While torpedo squadrons suffered devastating losses, their attacks drew Japanese fighters and anti-aircraft fire downward, inadvertently creating opportunities for dive bombers approaching from higher altitudes. In these fleeting windows of vulnerability, American dive bombers, particularly from USS Enterprise and USS Yorktown, found their targets with extraordinary accuracy. Aircraft plunged steeply, releasing bombs that struck the decks of Japanese carriers with devastating effect. The element of surprise, combined with timing and positioning, created a decisive opportunity that would alter the course of the battle. At approximately mid-morning, the first Japanese carriers were critically hit. The Kaga and Akagi, previously considered invulnerable, caught fire after precise bomb strikes. Soryu, too, was severely damaged, its decks erupting in flames and smoke. Hiryu, initially untouched, became the last operational carrier in Yamamoto's striking force. These losses, compounded by the cumulative stress on Japanese crews, represented a dramatic reversal. What had begun as a meticulously planned offensive now faced an unexpected vulnerability, highlighting the fragile balance of strategy, preparation, and chance in naval warfare. American pilots continued their assaults, coordinating attacks with skill, patience, and precision. Each wave built upon the previous, exploiting weaknesses, adjusting for defenses, and maintaining momentum. The sequence of attacks, though costly, demonstrated the effectiveness of intelligence-informed strategy, courage under fire, and the interplay of preparation and opportunity. Timing, positioning, and adaptability became the defining factors, emphasizing that battles are often won in the critical moments when strategy and execution align perfectly. The human dimension of these turning points was profound. Pilots faced harrowing conditions, anti-aircraft fire, enemy fighters, and the challenge of navigating vast expanses of ocean under pressure. Mechanics and crews aboard carriers worked tirelessly, refueling, rearming, and repairing aircraft under extreme conditions. Officers coordinated strikes, adjusted positions, and maintained communication with relentless focus. Every action, every decision contributed to the unfolding narrative, illustrating the interplay of courage, skill, and strategic insight in shaping outcomes. As the morning progressed, Japanese command faced unprecedented challenges. Yamamoto and his staff struggled to adapt to the rapidly evolving situation. Communication lines were disrupted, aircraft losses mounted, and the remaining operational carrier, Hiryu, became the focal point of both defense and counterattack. Decisions had to be made under extreme pressure, with incomplete information and ever-changing circumstances. The fragility of even the most meticulously planned operations became starkly evident. Hiryu launched counterstrikes in an attempt to regain initiative. Its aircraft targeted Midway Island and the American carriers, seeking to disrupt defenses and inflict damage, yet the timing, coordination, and effectiveness of these counterattacks were hampered by the earlier losses and the heightened alert of American forces. Pilots from Midway and carriers responded with precision, engaging Japanese aircraft and creating defensive layers that absorbed the impact of these strikes. The dynamic interplay of offense and defense highlighted the critical importance of adaptability, timing, and resilience in determining the course of battle. One of the most decisive turning points occurred when American dive bombers, guided by reconnaissance and timing, located Hiryu and delivered devastating strikes. Bombs penetrated the decks, igniting fires that would eventually render the carrier inoperable. With the loss of all 4 Japanese carriers, Kaga, Akagi, Soryu, and Hiryu, the balance of naval power in the Pacific shifted dramatically. What had begun as a calculated Japanese offensive now faced catastrophic reversals, illustrating how preparation, intelligence, courage, and timing intersect to shape the course of history. Amid the chaos, the human stories of skill, endurance, and bravery emerged. Pilots flew beyond the limits of fatigue, navigating through flak, smoke, and enemy fighters. Crews on carriers executed critical repairs, refueled and rearmed planes in the midst of explosions and fires. Officers maintained command, adjusting strategies and ensuring communication despite the fog of battle. Each individual action, though small in isolation, contributed to the pivotal moments that defined the turning points of the engagement. The psychological impact of these events was profound. Japanese crews, facing the sudden loss of their carriers and the unexpected effectiveness of American attacks, experienced shock and urgency. Morale, coordination, and the ability to execute strategy were all challenged under extreme conditions. Conversely, American forces drew confidence from their successes, reinforcing the effectiveness of intelligence-informed strategy, coordination, and the disciplined courage of their personnel. The battle, once a fluid contest of positioning and strikes, had crystallized around decisive moments that would determine the trajectory of the conflict. Environmental factors continue to influence outcomes. Sunlight reflecting off the ocean, shifting wind patterns, and cloud cover all affected visibility, targeting, and navigation. Pilots adjusted flight paths to account for these variables, while anti-aircraft crews calibrated their aim. The natural world, silent yet omnipresent, shaped the dynamics of each engagement, demonstrating that even in highly calculated operations, chance and environment play crucial roles. As the first half of the battle drew to a close, it became clear that the initial Japanese offensive had been decisively blunted. The American strategy of positioning, intelligence use, and coordinated strikes had succeeded in creating vulnerabilities, exploiting weaknesses, and turning the tide. The first strikes and the subsequent counterattacks illustrated a fundamental truth of warfare. Even meticulously planned operations can be overturned by preparation, courage, and the effective use of information. The turning points of Midway also highlighted the interplay between technology and human skill. Aircraft, carriers, bombs, and anti-aircraft guns were all instruments of strategy, yet their effectiveness depended entirely on the human operators. Pilots' judgment in selecting targets, mechanics' skill in maintaining planes under pressure, and officers' coordination of complex operations all converged to determine outcomes. The battle became a testament to the symbiosis between man and machine, strategy and execution, preparation and adaptability. Throughout these hours, the vast Pacific served as a silent witness to the unfolding drama. Its calm surface reflected the intensity of the skies above, where planes maneuvered with precision, courage, and focus. Waves lapped against the hulls of carriers as crews worked tirelessly to sustain operations under extreme conditions. The environment, vast and serene, contrasted sharply with the human intensity, tension, and courage driving the pivotal moments of the battle. In conclusion, the turning points of the Battle of Midway were defined by a combination of intelligence, strategy, human skill, timing, and adaptability. The resilience of Midway's defenders, the courage and precision of American pilots, and the unforeseen vulnerabilities in the Japanese plan converged to shift the momentum of the engagement. These critical moments, aircraft strikes, carrier losses, and the interplay of offense and defense, demonstrated how preparation, foresight, and human courage can transform the course of battle, shaping history in ways that resonate far beyond the Pacific. As we visualize this pivotal stage, imagine the calm expanse of ocean reflecting the morning light, the roar of engines rising above the waves, planes maneuvering with precision, and the disciplined focus of sailors and pilots and officers guiding every action. The turning points have passed, yet the drama is far from over. The stage is set for the final phases of the battle where decisions, courage, and strategy will continue to shape the course of history over the endless, shimmering Pacific. The sky over the Pacific had returned to a deceptive calm. Smoke still curled from burning Japanese carriers, and the ocean carried the distant echoes of explosions and the gentle hum of surviving ships. For those who had fought in the Battle of Midway, the day had been both extraordinary and harrowing, a test of courage, skill, and endurance. Yet, as the immediate chaos subsided, a new phase emerged, one of reflection, assessment, and understanding the broader consequences of this pivotal engagement. On the Japanese side, the losses were staggering. 4 of their carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, had been sunk or rendered inoperable. These carriers had represented the core of Japan's striking power in the Pacific, and their destruction was a devastating blow to naval capability and morale. Sailors clung to life rafts, struggled in the open ocean, or worked tirelessly on remaining vessels to rescue the wounded and salvage what remained of their fleets. The human cost was immense and the psychological impact profound, as the once dominant Japanese naval forces faced an unexpected reversal that challenged the assumptions of invincibility they had carried into battle. For the survivors, the aftermath involved both physical and emotional endurance. Sailors and pilots had endured long hours of combat, exposure to extreme conditions, and the constant threat of enemy attack. Many had witnessed comrades fall, ships engulfed in flames, and aircraft destroyed. Recovery, both immediate and long-term, required resilience, leadership, and coordination. Officers organized rescue operations, medical aid, and communication with remaining forces, while crews adapted to reduced resources, altered responsibilities, and the pressing need to maintain readiness for potential further engagements. The strategic consequences for Japan were equally significant. The loss of 4 carriers, along with experienced pilots and crews, represented a severe diminution of offensive capability. Yamamoto's carefully orchestrated plan had been thwarted, leaving the Japanese fleet vulnerable and forced to adopt a more defensive posture. The psychological impact extended beyond the immediate battlefield, affecting planning, morale, and perceptions of naval superiority. Commanders had to reassess strategy, consider new deployments, and address the stark reality that the balance of power in the Pacific had shifted dramatically. On the American side, the outcome was a turning point in the Pacific War. The success of Midway demonstrated the power of intelligence, preparation, and courage. Codebreakers had provided critical insights into Japanese plans, allowing Nimitz and his staff to position forces strategically, anticipate movements, and exploit vulnerabilities. Pilots executed strikes with precision despite immense risks, and officers coordinated complex operations across vast expanses of ocean. The result was a decisive victory that not only sank or disabled Japanese carriers, but also reinforced the effectiveness of planning, coordination, and adaptability in naval warfare. The human element of the aftermath was profound. American crews celebrated successes quietly, mindful of losses sustained in the struggle. Pilots reflected on missions flown over open ocean, the intensity of aerial combat, and the narrow margins between life and death. Sailors on carriers and support vessels worked to maintain operational readiness, recover equipment, and care for the wounded. Leaders, while recognizing the significance of victory, also understood the need for continued vigilance, preparation, and adaptability in the unfolding war across the Pacific. Midway's aftermath also highlighted the importance of logistics, supply, and maintenance in sustaining naval power. Aircraft carriers required continuous refueling, rearming, and repair while remaining operational for future engagements. Pilots needed rest, maintenance crews required resources, and ships had to coordinate movements to maintain effectiveness. The complexity of sustaining naval operations in the vast Pacific became starkly evident, underscoring that victory in battle was inseparable from the practical realities of endurance, coordination, and support. The immediate tactical aftermath included the continuation of Japanese counterattacks, though with diminished capacity. Hiryu, the last operational carrier, attempted strikes against American forces, targeting Midway Island and carriers to regain initiative. Yet the diminished fleet faced both physical limitations and heightened alertness from American forces. Pilots and sailors adapted to changing conditions, demonstrating the interplay between resilience, tactical decision-making, and the unfolding consequences of earlier turning points. The engagement became as much about recovery and adaptation as it was about continued combat. Beyond the tactical and operational level, the strategic consequences of Midway were profound. The battle halted Japanese expansion in the Pacific and shifted the momentum to the United States. Losses of carriers, experienced air crews, and pilots limited Japan's ability to conduct large-scale offensive operations in the immediate future. Conversely, the United States gained confidence, demonstrated the effectiveness of intelligence and preparation, and established a foundation for future offensive operations, ultimately paving the way for a broader campaign to reclaim territory and assert naval dominance. Midway's aftermath also revealed the interplay between technology, training, and human courage. Aircraft, anti-aircraft guns, carriers, and navigation instruments were essential tools, yet their effectiveness depended entirely on human operation, judgment, and skill. Pilots navigated open ocean under immense pressure, anti-aircraft crews maintained precision under fire, and officers coordinated complex operations across vast distances. The battle illustrated that technology alone does not guarantee success. Its integration with preparation, strategy, and human courage is decisive. The psychological and symbolic impact of Midway extended beyond the battlefield. For the United States, the victory represented not only a tactical success, but also a powerful boost to morale. News of the victory inspired confidence, national pride, and a renewed sense of purpose in the Pacific theater. For Japan, the loss was a sobering reminder of vulnerability, signaling that even the most meticulously planned operations could be undone by intelligence, courage, and adaptability. The battle shaped perceptions, influenced strategy, and reverberated through military planning on both sides. In the days following Midway, the focus shifted to consolidation and assessment. Survivors were rescued, ships were repaired or redirected, and lessons were analyzed to inform future operations. Commanders reviewed the outcomes, considering both successes and failures, to refine tactics, training, and operational planning. The aftermath became a period of learning, adaptation, and preparation for subsequent engagements, reinforcing the dynamic nature of naval warfare in the Pacific. The human stories of resilience, courage, and endurance remained central to the narrative. Sailors endured exposure, fatigue, and danger in rescue operations, while pilots reflected on missions flown under extreme stress and uncertainty. Officers and commanders navigated both operational and emotional challenges, maintaining focus, coordination, and leadership under difficult conditions. These human elements, interwoven with technology, strategy, and logistics, defined the enduring legacy of Midway's aftermath. The consequences of Midway also extended to broader military strategy. The loss of Japanese carriers and experienced pilots constrained offensive operations, forcing Japan to adopt a more defensive posture and reconsider expansionist plans. Conversely, the United States gained strategic initiative, confidence in intelligence operations, and the ability to plan offensive campaigns with greater assurance. The battle demonstrated how a single engagement shaped by preparation, intelligence, and courage could influence the trajectory of an entire theater of war. Environmental factors continued to shape post-battle operations. Calm seas facilitated rescue and salvage efforts, while weather and ocean conditions influenced movement, repair, and redeployment of surviving forces. Pilots adjusted to changing wind patterns and visibility, while crews coordinated logistics across vast distances. The Pacific, silent and expansive, remained both a stage and a participant in the unfolding story, influencing outcomes even after the immediate conflict had passed. Midway's aftermath also underscored the importance of coordination across multiple domains: naval, aerial, and intelligence. Success depended on the integration of reconnaissance, communication, and operational execution. Pilots, sailors, officers, and analysts all contributed to a cohesive effort that shaped the outcome and informed future operations. The battle illustrated the necessity of harmonizing human skill, technology, and strategic insight to achieve decisive results. In the months and years following Midway, the consequences resonated across the Pacific theater. The United States was able to transition from a defensive stance to a more assertive campaign, leveraging the momentum gained to plan subsequent operations in the Solomon Islands, Guadalcanal, and beyond. Japan, facing significant losses, had to rebuild its forces, retrain pilots, and reassess strategic objectives, demonstrating how the aftermath of a single engagement can influence the broader trajectory of a conflict. The human, strategic, and operational lessons of Midway continue to resonate. Courage, preparation, intelligence, and adaptability were decisive. The interplay of technology and human skill shaped outcomes. Leadership, coordination, and resilience under extreme conditions proved critical. The battle exemplified how meticulous planning, combined with flexibility and the ability to seize opportunities, can determine success even in the face of formidable challenges. As we reflect on the aftermath, picture the calm Pacific waters stretching endlessly, ships maneuvering carefully amidst smoke and debris, pilots and sailors tending to the wounded, and officers coordinating recovery and assessment. The human stories of endurance, courage, and adaptation unfold quietly against the serene backdrop of the ocean. The consequences of Midway extend far beyond the immediate engagement, influencing strategy, morale, and the trajectory of the Pacific War. In summary, the aftermath and consequences of the Battle of Midway were profound, shaping both immediate operations and long-term strategic outcomes. The loss of Japanese carriers, the effectiveness of American intelligence and strikes, and the courage of individuals all contributed to a decisive shift in the balance of power. The human stories, strategic insights, and operational lessons of Midway continue to serve as enduring examples of preparation, adaptability, and courage in the face of extraordinary challenges. As the smoke cleared over the Pacific and the sun cast long, golden reflections across the ocean waves, the Battle of Midway left behind more than shattered ships and exhausted crews. It left a legacy that would echo through history, shaping naval strategy, influencing military planning, and inspiring generations. The significance of Midway extended beyond immediate victories and losses. It offered lessons in courage, intelligence, leadership, and human endurance that continue to resonate to this day. The most immediate legacy of Midway was strategic. By halting the advance of the Japanese Imperial Navy, the United States gained a critical foothold in the Pacific theater. 4 of Japan's most powerful carriers had been lost, along with hundreds of experienced pilots, sailors, and support personnel. This shift in naval power allowed the Allies to transition from defensive operations to a more offensive posture, planning campaigns to reclaim territories, protect supply lines, and eventually project power across the vast Pacific. Midway demonstrated that even a seemingly insurmountable opponent could be challenged with preparation, intelligence, and determination. Beyond the immediate military impact, the battle underscored the transformative power of intelligence in modern warfare. American codebreakers, who had deciphered Japanese communication codes, provided crucial information about the planned attack. This foresight enabled Admiral Chester W. Nimitz to anticipate enemy movements, position forces strategically, and execute coordinated strikes that would decisively alter the outcome. The lesson was clear. In modern conflict, knowledge and foresight can be as decisive as firepower, transforming uncertainty into opportunity. Human courage and resilience formed another enduring lesson. Pilots flying over hundreds of miles of open ocean faced intense anti-aircraft fire, enemy fighters, and the risk of mechanical failure. Sailors endured the chaos of burning ships, rescue operations, and the constant vigilance required to survive in the aftermath of combat. Officers coordinated complex maneuvers under immense pressure, making decisions that could mean life or death for thousands. The human element, courage, skill, adaptability, proved as crucial as any weapon or strategy, reminding us that history is shaped by the choices, endurance, and spirit of individuals. Leadership emerged as a defining factor in the legacy of Midway. Admiral Nimitz exemplified the importance of calm, informed decision-making under pressure. He integrated intelligence, operational planning, and risk management to position forces effectively, demonstrating that leadership involves both foresight and the ability to act decisively in uncertain circumstances. Japanese commanders, despite meticulous planning, were challenged by unforeseen circumstances and the limitations of information, illustrating how leadership in battle requires adaptability as much as planning. The battle also left a technological and tactical legacy. Aircraft carriers, which had already revolutionized naval warfare, proved their central role in modern conflict. The coordinated use of dive bombers, torpedo bombers, and fighters showcased the evolving interplay between different types of aircraft, ships, and anti-aircraft defenses. Midway highlighted the necessity of integrated tactics, where success depended on harmonizing air and naval power, timing, positioning, and intelligence. These lessons informed the development of carrier-based warfare, shaping strategies for decades to come. The impact on morale and national identity was equally profound. For the United States, Midway became a symbol of resilience, ingenuity, and the ability to overcome adversity. News of the victory inspired confidence, strengthened national resolve, and reinforced the idea that careful preparation and courage could defeat formidable opponents. For Japan, the loss was a sobering moment, challenging assumptions of invincibility and highlighting vulnerabilities in strategy and execution. The battle's outcomes reinforced the notion that morale, perception, and psychological factors are integral to the broader consequences of conflict. Midway also offers enduring lessons in risk and opportunity. The Japanese plan had been bold and meticulously designed, relying on precise coordination and surprise. Yet the combination of intelligence, timing, and adaptive action by American forces turned this advantage into vulnerability. The battle illustrated that even the most well-prepared operations can be disrupted by unforeseen circumstances, and that opportunities often arise from the careful observation, timing, and decisive action of those willing to act under uncertainty. The legacy of Midway extends to education and military doctrine. Military academies around the world study the engagement as an example of the interplay between intelligence, leadership, coordination, and adaptability. It serves as a case study in decision-making under pressure, resource management, and the integration of technology and human skill, Officers and strategists analyze the battle to understand how preparation, foresight, and adaptability converge to create decisive outcomes, reinforcing lessons that remain relevant across generations. Human stories from Midway continue to inspire reflection and learning. Pilots who flew torpedo missions despite overwhelming odds, sailors who saved comrades from burning ships, and officers who maintained calm under extreme pressure all exemplify the courage, endurance, and decision-making that defined the battle. These narratives highlight that history is not only shaped by strategic objectives or technological tools, but also by individual bravery, resilience, and ethical responsibility in the face of extraordinary challenges. The consequences of Midway also shaped the broader trajectory of the Pacific War. The United States, emboldened by the victory, gained strategic initiative that allowed for subsequent campaigns such as Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands operations. Japan, facing diminished offensive capability, was forced into a more defensive stance, reallocating resources and reconsidering expansionist strategies. Midway demonstrated that a single engagement, when leveraged effectively, can have cascading effects across an entire theater of war, altering strategy, morale, and operational possibilities. Environmental and logistical lessons also emerged from the battle. The vast Pacific required meticulous planning in fuel, ordnance, maintenance, and navigation. Aircraft carriers needed continuous support, pilots required careful timing and endurance, and crews had to coordinate across immense distances. Midway highlighted that logistical excellence and environmental awareness are as crucial as tactical skill, reinforcing the importance of preparation, adaptability, and resource management in both historical and modern operations. The enduring legacy of Midway emphasizes the balance between preparation and adaptability. Meticulous planning, extensive training, and strategic foresight were essential to success. Yet flexibility and response to unexpected events determined the ultimate outcome. American forces adapted to unfolding circumstances, exploited vulnerabilities, and acted decisively in critical moments. The battle demonstrated that history favors those who combine preparation with the courage and skill to respond dynamically to the uncertainties of conflict. The human dimension of the lessons is timeless. Courage, resilience, leadership, and collaboration remain central to any endeavor that involves risk, uncertainty, or complex decision-making. Midway exemplifies how individuals, when operating within coordinated systems and informed by knowledge and strategy, can shape outcomes far beyond their immediate actions. The narratives of heroism, decision-making under pressure, and collective effort serve as enduring reminders of the power of human agency in shaping history. In the broader context, Midway also reminds us that victories in war are rarely singular achievements. They are the culmination of intelligence, preparation, coordination, technology, and human skill. Each element contributes to a larger tapestry of outcomes, illustrating that history is shaped not by chance alone, but by deliberate action informed by knowledge, courage, and adaptability. The lessons of Midway extend beyond military operations, offering insight into leadership, risk management, strategy, and resilience in a wide range of contexts. The cultural and symbolic impact of Midway endures. Memorials, museums, and historical accounts preserve the stories of those who fought, ensuring that the bravery, sacrifice, and strategic insight are remembered. These legacies inspire not only historians and military professionals, but also anyone seeking to understand the interplay between preparation, courage, and opportunity in shaping significant outcomes. Midway's story transcends the battlefield, offering lessons for leadership, strategy, and human endeavor across generations. Finally, as we reflect on the Battle of Midway, we recognize its enduring resonance. It serves as a reminder that even amidst the chaos of conflict, clarity, preparation, and courage can shape outcomes. that knowledge, intelligence, and foresight can transform uncertainty into opportunity, that individuals working together with skill and determination can influence the course of history. The legacy of Midway, its lessons and its stories of human resilience and ingenuity continue to inspire, instruct, and illuminate the path for those who study its history. Imagine the calm Pacific once more, the waves stretching endlessly, the remnants of ships reflecting the morning sun, and the stories of courage echoing across time. The battle has ended, the smoke has cleared, and the human and strategic lessons remain vivid. Midway, a moment in history, continues to live on through the actions, reflections, and enduring legacy of all who participated and all who remember. It is a testament to preparation, courage, intelligence, and the enduring power of human agency in shaping the course of history.